Kubrat Pulev wins a 12-round unanimous decision over Hughie Fury to become the IBF mandatory challenger at heavyweight. Pulev was just too physically strong, too experienced, and too savvy for Hughie Fury. Fury suffered a cut early in the fight. I think it was the first or second round from one of those very heavy jabs that Kubrat Pulev is famous for throwing. It was a cut which Hughie Fury apparently suffered in sparring, and it reopened in the ring against Pulev. His dad and trainer, Peter Fury, said that the cut was sustained sparring Martin Bucoli. And they had it micro-stitched, and they were 50-50 about whether they'd actually go through with the Pulev fight. But in the end, they decided, you know what, we've got nowhere else to go. Pulev and his team said they're going to move on and we'll lose the mandatory, the right to fight for the mandatory position. So we have to just go ahead. So yeah, he got cut with that very heavy jab from Pulev, and it was downhill from there. Now, Peter Fury in the post-fight interview was putting a lot of stock in that cut, and I guess making out as though if the cut hadn't happened, it would have been a totally different fight. And I've seen several people online who are Hughie Fury fans saying the same thing, that if he hadn't got cut, it would have been a totally different fight. Now, this is possible. It's possible that the cut could have made a big difference to the outcome of the fight. But in my opinion, it's unlikely. And why do I say this? Well, because Hughie Fury's cut man actually did a very good job at stemming the bleeding, because it looked initially as though the fight wouldn't go more than a couple rounds, as severe as the cut was. But after a couple rounds of the cutman working on it, it was hardly bleeding at all. Hughie Fury's face wasn't a mask full of blood, so his vision wasn't being impaired round after round. So I don't really accept that as an excuse for Hughie Fury losing. I just think he was beat by the better man on the night. And why was Kubrat Pulev the better man? As I say, physical strength on the inside, up close. I mean, not that Kubrat Pulev is a good inside fighter. He's not. This was something which one of the Channel 5 commentators, said, which was so ridiculous. He was criticizing Kubrat Pulev's performance against Klitschko, fair enough, but he said, why was Pulev fighting on the outside against Klitschko when he should have been getting on the inside where he's really good? Madness. This guy's clearly never seen a Pulev fight, because Pulev has never been good on the inside. Pulev's whole game is fighting on the outside. That's where Pulev excels. On the inside, one thing I can say about Pulev, or up close, he's very physically strong. Even against Vladimir Klitschko, that was a fight where he was dropped numerous times. Klitschko didn't outstrength him on the inside. Pulev was still very strong up close. And you saw it here against Hughie Fury. It was like man versus boy in the clinches. Kubrat Pulev having his way when they were up close. So he's a very physically strong man. At long range, Pulev is very, very patient. He will wait there all day with you if you want to play chess. You cannot be trying to play chess with Kubrat Pulev unless you're some kind of chess master, because Kubrat Pulev is borderline a master at chess. He will stand there at long range, and he's very patient. He doesn't care if he only manages to land 1 or 2 punches around, because he's going to make sure that you don't even land any punches around if he can, or land 1 or 2 punches less than him. You understand? That's Pulev's game. He fiddles his way through fights. He's a chess player, and you'd be well advised not to try play chess with him, but to take the fight to him. Yeah? Playing chess, no good. Against Kubrat Pulev. That's what he does. You go look at Kubrat Pulev versus Ustinov. That's what he did against Ustinov. You go look at Kubrat Pulev against Dimitrenko. You go look at Kubrat Pulev against Tony Thompson. Tony Thompson fight is probably a great example of how patient Pulev is. Pulev will go through, several rounds and hardly throw anything. He's not bothered. He doesn't panic. He's very patient. He'll wait for you to make the mistake first. And then he'll capitalized with that very heavy jab. Kubrat Pulev has got a tremendously powerful jab. And you see the jab that opened up the cut on Hughie Fury. It knocked Fury's whole head back. Very powerful jab. That's what he's been known for his whole career, Kubrat Pulev. And in boxing, there's a saying which you often hear people use, which is you need to fight your fight. And what that means is you have to fight in the way that you're most comfortable. Kubrat Pulev is most comfortable on the outside in a low volume fight, throwing a lot of jabs. That's where he's most comfortable. So Pulev was fighting his fight in this fight. This is how Pulev normally fights. This is how his fights normally go. But Hughie Fury wasn't fighting his fight. Hughie Fury doesn't normally sit in the corner. Well, sometimes he does against certain journeymen. But if you want to take an example of the Joseph Parker fight, okay? Hughie Fury was constantly moving in the Joseph Parker fight. Round and round, lateral movement here and there. That's Hughie Fury's fight. He didn't fight that fight against Kubrat Pulev. He was more stationary. He was on the ropes and in the corners more. His offensive game was very, very, very poor and uncultured. I mean, there wasn't even many jabs against Hughie Fury. Perhaps that was because he was worried about exchanging jabs because he felt how powerful Pulev's jabs were. And he thought, you know what, I don't want to exchange jabs with this guy, particularly not with this cut on my eye. So maybe that's why we didn't see Hughie Fury's jab anywhere near as frequent as it normally is. So he wasn't throwing the jab. His offense was very, very crude, I would say, Hughie Fury. When he got caught, obviously, he had to try and go for it the round after because they didn't know how long the doctor would allow him to continue. But when he went for it, again, you can forgive him that round. But subsequent to that, once they stemmed the bleeding and once the blood wasn't flowing into his eye, you would expect him to try and set up some power punches in a little bit of a more sophisticated way. But no, he was just winging these bent arm right hands over, which Kubrat Pulev could see a mile off. There was no setup for most of the right hands or anything. He was just winging these bent arm shots. He wasn't throwing them straight. He was winging them in a looping fashion. It was very, very crude offense from Hughie Fury. There was a couple times in the fight where he managed to get the right hand off, and he did actually stun Kubrat Pulev. He buzzed him in one of the rounds late on in the fight. And he might kind of semi-buzzed him again another time, but those were very fleeting moments of success for Hughie Fury. For the most part, his offense was very crude, winging bent arm punches. It was uncultured, it was unsophisticated, and it was not enough to beat Kubrat Pulev, who is a smart boxer. There are a lot of people out there for many years who have been highly critical of Pulev, but one thing I can tell you about him, and I've been covering Pulev on my channel for many, many years. Long-time subscribers will know. You know, back before the Klitschko fight, I was covering Kubrat Pulev. And in fact, during that period, I picked up quite a few subscribers from Bulgaria, and I still talk to several of my Bulgarian subscribers on Facebook. All right, so, you know, I've been riding with them for a long time. But Pulev is a very smart boxer, very cagey, very crafty. He knows what he's doing in there. The only fight in which Kubrat Pulev let his emotions get the better of him was against Vladimir Klitschko. But apart from that, Pulev is normally a very cool customer. Very smart, very cagey. You know, not the prettiest fighter to watch, but a smart guy, a savvy guy. And he just outboxed Hughie Fury, really. If we're going to be real, that's what he did. He outboxed him. He outmuscled him up close in the clinches. And it was man versus boy. You know, there had been some concern in the lead up to this fight, understandably so, that the officials, the judges, the ref, etc., might make it very difficult for Hughie Fury when it comes to winning a decision. But in the end, the officials and the judges didn't matter because Kubrat Pulev won this fight fair and square. Very few people would contest that. But yeah, I mean, Kubrat Pulev is like a demigod in Bulgaria. I mean, from the first round, Pulev barely threw a punch in the first round, but when he did throw a jab towards the end of the round, which missed, the entire arena erupted into cheers. That's how massive a star and big a deal Kubrat Pulev is in Bulgaria. He's a very big deal over there. And when you're dealing with a star that big in their own backyard, of course, you're going to be concerned about getting robbed on the scorecards. The same way for anybody going to the UK who's not from the UK to fight Anthony Joshua at Wembley, you're going to be concerned. I mean, if you look at the Klitschko fight, I thought that Klitschko was definitely ahead going into the 11th round against Anthony Joshua, but somehow the judges had Joshua ahead, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. That is standard practice, really, when it comes to these superstar fighters, when they're superstars in their own country, at least. You're going to get funny things going on with the judges and the ref and all that type of business. So, yeah, a lot of people were concerned about that for Hughie Fury in this fight. But in the end, it didn't matter because Pulev won fair and square. There can be no issue taken with the result. I mean, the scorecards were kind of weird. If you see here, one judge had it 117, 111, 118, 110, but one had it 115, 113. So, yeah, weird that they had two very wide scorecards and then one relatively close scorecard. Strange, but whatever the case may be, the right man won. It was the right result. Kubrat Pulev defeats Hughie Fury. And people are saying that Hughie Fury is rubbish. He's British level. He's garbage, so on and so forth. And then you've got a few Fury fans out there say, no, he's not. He's only 24 and all this type of business. Here's my take on it. Hughie Fury lacks the character to make it at the top level at this point. Now, you can build character, you can change character, you can improve character, but it's actually more difficult to change your character than it is to change yourself physically or change yourself technically. Yeah. Changing your character is very, very difficult. And why do I say Hughie Fury doesn't have the character at the moment to make it at top level? Hughie Fury is a guy who, to me, lacks killer instinct. He lacks get up and go. He lacks that viciousness that you need at the top level in boxing. That ability to take the bull by the horns and take control of a situation that's getting out of hand. That's what you need. And if you look at most successful fighters, they have this. Now, there are some fighters who don't necessarily have that, but are still successful because they are so supremely physically gifted. Hughie Fury has a certain amount of physical talent, but he's not that gifted, okay? So for someone like him, lacking that killer instinct, lacking that fire in the belly is a big problem. Kubrat Pulev has it. Anthony Joshua has it. Tyson Fury has it. Dylan White has it. Alexander Povetkin has it. David Haye had it. These guys have got fire in their belly. Do you understand what I'm saying? They've got get up and go. They've got a drive. They've got a different level of confidence and determination and meanness. This is what they have. Hughie Fury doesn't have it. I mean, even if you look at somebody like Amir Khan, a vulnerable fighter, Khan, right? Amir Khan has that fire in his belly. He has that mean streak in him. In fact, Khan, one of his biggest weaknesses, apart from his chin and his defense, is the fact that his mean streak, his hot-headedness, actually gets him into trouble in the ring a lot of the time. But as much as people laugh at Khan and ridicule him and talk about his flaws, Khan has never been lacking when it comes to having fire in his belly. He's never been lacking in that department. Hughie Fury is lacking in that department. And I wrote this on Facebook, and I had a couple Hughie Fury fans say, give him a break, Hatman, he's only 24. I'm tired of this give Hughie Fury a break, Hatman, he's only 24 excuse. How old was Amir Khan when he won his first world title? What are you talking about? I'm not talking about Hughie Fury's age, I'm talking about his character. Does he have the character? And right now, he doesn't have the character. It's going to be very difficult for him to build up the character if he can do it. I'm not saying it's impossible, but that's the process he's going to have to go through. He just seems like a bit too much of a nice guy, to put it in layman's terms. Just seems like too much of a nice guy. And it's all good being a nice guy outside the ring. You can't be a nice guy in the ring. And Hughie Fury just seems like a bit of a nice guy in the ring. You can't be that. You got to be mean in there. And this is something you're usually born with. It's a situation where you usually have it or you don't. Tyson Fury from a young age, from when he was younger than Hughie Fury, he had that meanness. You go look at Tyson Fury's early fights, you can see it in him. You can see the meanness in his eyes. Even early in Tyson Fury's career, when he wasn't even in shape, he had the meanness about him. Anthony Joshua, you go look at his amateur fights when he was fighting in the World Championships. He had meanness in there. This is when he was young, around 24, the same age that Hughie's now. Joshua had meanness in him when he fought Camarel in the World Championships. I'm not talking about the Olympics. I'm talking about the World Championships. Go watch Anthony Joshua in there. Meanness. Dylan White, same thing. Mean guy. When they're young. Even Daniel Dubois, he's younger than Hughie Fury, right? Daniel Dubois is mean. You know, I've been kind of 50-50 on Dubois. I've been kind of reserving my judgment on Daniel Dubois till I see more of him. But I can tell you that Daniel Dubois has a lot more meanness in him than Hughie Fury. A hell of a lot more. And you need that. And so the whole Hughie's young excuse, it doesn't wash with me. It's not about his age, it's about his character. And yes, your character changes with age to some extent, but we're all born with different character, inherently. I'm sure Tyson Fury and Hughie Fury, when they were both 10 years old, they were very different characters. And it's Tyson Fury's character combined with his much better physical ability, because that has to be said. We're not just talking about character only here. Tyson Fury is obviously a lot more talented than Hughie. Even though he's not in the kind of condition Hughie's in most of the time, Tyson Fury is more talented. But along with Tyson Fury's talent comes the greater will, the greater strength of character. See, boxing, aside from the technical aspect of it and the fitness, etc., and the toughness, it's the physical toughness. Boxing is a battle of wills. Who can impose their will on the other guy? And when you're in a situation like that, who has the stronger will is very important very often. And Hughie Fury just doesn't appear to have a particularly strong will. Yeah. Again, if they can work on that, then that's something they need to work on. But right now, it don't look good. And that's, as I say, something you're usually born with, or you either have it or you don't. That strong will, that particular type of character. Hughie Fury, as I say, 24 years old. He's probably going to have to drop down to British level now. He's shown a reluctance to face people at British level previously. Remember, he turned down fights with Dylan White. He wasn't keen on fighting Joe Joyce, etc. But now he's going to drop down to British level, and there are people like Daniel Dubois, Nathan Gorman. I mean, some people are going to say he should drop down to European level. Okay. Who's at European level? Hellenius? He's at European level, right? Guess a few other guys. And he's going to have to fight some of the British guys when they get up to European level. I mean, somebody like Joe Joyce, he's going to be at European level very soon, right? So British level at the moment, you're talking about the likes of Dubois and Gorman. I'm not sure if Gorman will ever fight Hughie Fury. Aren't they related? I'm not sure if they're actually related. They're both travelers, obviously, but I believe Gorman is actually related to the Furies. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. So they might not fight because of that. But Hughie Fury against Daniel Dubois, that's a fight I'd like to see in 2019. Particularly if we can't get Dubois versus Gorman, I'd like to see Dubois versus Fury. Yeah. And if Fury was to lose that fight, you can't make no excuses about age because Daniel Dubois is younger than him. In fact, good example, Nathan Gorman. He's a young guy too, isn't he? How old is Nathan Gorman? Like younger than Hughie Fury, right? Or same kind of age. Nathan Gorman has what Hughie Fury don't have in terms of character. Nathan Gorman has that meanness in him. He has that meanness in him. Hughie Fury don't have it. You can tell it in his body language, in his face. He don't have it. Nathan Gorman has it. And I know people weren't impressed by his last performance. It is what it is. But I can tell you Nathan Gorman is just a more strong-willed, to me, he looks like a much more strong-willed character than Hughie Fury. It doesn't mean he'll be as physically tough. That's a different thing. Okay, we're talking about the will here. The killer instinct. Gorman has that more than Hughie Fury has it. And I think Gorman is younger. So again, it's not about age. It's about character. That's what I'm talking about here. And just finally, I've seen quite a few people online blaming Hughie Fury's performance and the fact that he didn't win on his dad and trainer, Peter Fury. Now, to me, this is very reactionary and it's actually unfair. And I don't think it's particularly accurate, to be honest with you. Peter Fury transformed Tyson Fury's career. Facts. He transformed Tyson Fury as a fighter, not only in terms of his fitness and professionalism, but also technically. You go watch Tyson Fury when he hooked up with Peter. Technically, there was a massive improvement from him. So, if you want to criticize Peter Fury when one of his fighters loses, cool. But you also have to praise him for when one of his fighters wins, particularly when you're seeing a massive improvement physically and technically from one of his fighters, as you saw with Tyson Fury. That was Peter's work right there. You go look at Tyson Fury, the state he was in, physically and technically, prior to his uncle Peter training him. So you have to give Peter massive credit for what he did with his nephew Tyson. He created that version of Tyson Fury that beat Vladimir Klitschko. Yeah, that version from a technical and physical point of view, Peter created that. To me, it takes a good trainer to create something like that. So people being reactionary, oh, Hughie Fury lost and he didn't do very well. Oh, see, Peter's overrated as a trainer. BS. At the end of the day, it don't matter how good a trainer you are. If your fighter is not that talented, there's not much you're going to be able to do. You can improve him to a certain extent, but you'll only be able to take a fighter so far. Particularly if they don't have the mental makeup. That's the most important thing. If you've got a fighter who is mentally very strong, he has the killer instinct, he's very confident, but he's lacking technically, it's easier to improve a fighter like that than it is to improve a fighter who doesn't have it mentally. Trying to get a fighter who doesn't have it mentally to have it is like banging your head against a brick wall. You can teach him all the technical things in the world, but when he goes in the ring, if he don't have the mindset necessary, he's going to keep disappointing you. And this is the issue, as far as I'm concerned, that Peter Fury's having. Now, there are some technical issues too with Hughie Fury not throwing the right hand straight. And again, that's something they should definitely work on. And to be honest with you, Tyson Fury, in his fights, if you watch Tyson Fury in most of his fights, he often doesn't throw the right hand straight as well. So if you want to criticize Peter Fury in terms of the way he trains fighters to throw the right hand, then that might be a legitimate criticism. But all round, Peter Fury teaches his fighters very well from a technical point of view, positioning, using the jab, tactics, so on and so forth, are excellent from Peter Fury, in my view. It's just that with his son Hughie, he doesn't quite have it mentally and emotionally at this stage. He may never have it. But then again, maybe he can. Maybe they can build his character up. Maybe experiences like this will help to build his character. This is what Peter certainly believes. This is what he said in the post-fight interview with IFL, that this experience will help Hughie mentally. Perhaps it will. We'll see in the future. But yeah, I do think it's a little reactionary for one of Peter's fighters to lose. Oh, Peter's overrated as a trainer. It's like, come on, man. I'm not saying that Hughie Fury is, a lost cause at this point. Okay, so don't take what I'm about to say the wrong way. All right, because I'm not necessarily saying this for Hughie Fury. I'm just saying this in general. But there's a saying, right? A very vulgar, colloquial saying, and that is, you can't polish a turd. And again, I'm not saying Hughie's necessarily a turd. I'm just speaking in general. You can't polish a turd. Some fighters, you can put them with the greatest trainer in the world and they're not going to produce results. Many fighters, in fact. You look at fighters who have gone to Freddie Roach that haven't succeeded. You look at fighters that went to Manny Stewart that didn't succeed. I mean, Manny Stewart didn't have great success with Naseem Hamed. He didn't bring out the best in Naseem Hamed. And he was, I guess, co-training Hamed along with Oscar Suarez, so that was a difficult kind of situation. But either way, Manny Stewart kind of made Prince Naseem more conventional, and that was detrimental to him, in my view. Manny Stewart with Andy Lee didn't have great success. Andy Lee didn't win a world title till he was with Adam Booth, right? And Andy Lee was with Manny Stewart for years. Does that make Manny Stewart a bad fighter, a bad trainer? Does that mean Manny Stewart is over? No! You're not going to have success with every single fighter you have, even if you're the greatest trainer of all time. That's just how it goes. So I think people are being way too reactionary and unfair with Peter Fury just because his son Hughie hasn't managed to step up to the plate the last couple of times he's stepped up in competition. He hasn't managed to pull it off. He doesn't have the raw material with Hughie that he has with Tyson in terms of his mental makeup and his physical makeup. Tyson Fury taller, physically stronger, more dexterous. It's just better. He has a better, more talented fighter in Tyson than he has in his own son. And obviously I say he's no longer with Tyson Fury, obviously. Anyway, Pulev goes on. He is now mandatory for Anthony Joshua at the moment. We'll see if that fight gets made. Pulev has had the opportunity to fight Anthony Joshua several times before and turned it down. We'll see if he'll take it this time. The IBF are normally pretty strict on enforcing mandatories. They normally don't mess around at all. So I expect the mandatory to be called in 2019 sometime. So, anyway, let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section below. It's happening, I'm out.
Join me on Patreon. I upload a minimum of 2 podcasts every single week, covering a wide variety of controversial topics, as well as live stream Q&A sessions. Take a look on screen right now at some of the podcasts I've produced so far. For just $3 a month, the equivalent of about £2 a month, you get access to all my new podcasts and my entire back catalogue of past podcasts, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen on your computer or on your smartphone or tablet by downloading the Patreon app from the Google Play Store or the App Store for free. The Patreon app also allows you to download each podcast in MP3. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, you get access to dozens of hours of exclusive content. It's easy to sign up, there's no contract, and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of free and critical thinkers by signing up with me here on Patreon today.